Before we get right into it, I really want to share that I deeply believe that all of this just stacks the odds positively for us. It's no guarantee of an ideal outcome. I think we do our best in healthy parenting, and if we're mostly consistent with it, we have our best chance of a child developing with a healthy sense of themselves, their inherent very special value, and their awareness of the world around them, and how they fit into that picture of what is appropriate and what is not, and the rest is up to them. We also have to surrender and know that every one of our children has their own journey to fulfill. We can contribute to that journey, positively or negatively, and do our best to equip them for it. But that's it. It is still their journey, not ours. And while we may hope and pray for a wonderful outcome, we do not serve ourselves by attaching our own value as parents to that outcome. If we've done mostly good, and our children choose to live lives of values that differ greatly from our own, it is their right and privilege to do so, just as we may have done so comparing to our parents. And attaching ourselves to that outcome is unhealthy, generally unwelcome, and unfair. Just because you pour yourself into the development of the team, who didn't ask to be on the team, let's remember that, in our analogy, does not mean they are obligated to sell out to your vision of what is best for them, does it? At 18 or whenever, when it is up to them, it is just that, whether we like it or not. Up to them. Sure, this is hard, hey? I digressed again. So these are a few ideas from what I have felt really has served well so far. And I'm completely open to good ideas, always looking for upgrades of the program strategy, and can download them and implement them instantly if they will most likely run better than the current version. The first few months of a baby's life is not really the time for discipline. That's the time for servitude. Cry, feed, cry, change the nappy, cry, find the dummy, replace it in the mouth, cry, feed, cry, run, cry, try. Nothing works to stop the crying. Rock in arms a lot, pray, run into another room and block your ears, return, pacify, pray again, try to hold yourself together, rock in arms again, leave to cry, pray, cry yourself a lot, wish that someone would hold you, and so it goes. It is what it is, those first months, and it's never worked yet to say, stop crying, even stop crying, please, I'll give you a treat. None of that counts. It's just fortitude, resilience, perseverance, and my best suggestion is an iPod. If the 21st century was going to come along and provide inexpensive, drug-free solutions to crying babies, it has to be the iPod-type musical equipment. Only use it once you're with the child, or you might miss that first cry to start with. Not good. Then plug them into your ears and do what it takes, for as long as it takes, to settle the babe while listening intently to your best musical tracks. Opera helps. The crying gets blended. Anyway, that's my best offering on that stage, short of getting someone else to hold the baby and going to have a hot bath with the music in your ears. Exactly. So you might as well try that route or suggest it to friends in crying crises. At about 6 months old, if your baby is not sleeping, you may want to try what I did with mine. My son was up every 45 minutes to 90 minutes throughout every night from the day he was born. By 6 months, I was a very exhausted mommy. Not ideal. Also, I did some research and learned that children who do not sleep properly are very likely to develop behavioral problems as they grow up. That scared me. Here I am with my strategies to best support the development of my child, and his sleeping patterns are going to mess with everything? Forget it. So I did research on how to discipline a child's sleeping patterns and found there are several, and also discovered that the general opinion is that one should not do so until the baby is 6 months old, because it is not ideal for them to remove their feeds during the night until then. The one I created was a mixture of many, but there is plenty out there for you to follow should you not wish to use this one or find it doesn't serve you. I have mentored this to desperate parents many times with great results, so you can have confidence it may work for you too. On the first night of sleep training boot camp, I put him to bed at the time I felt was good for him to get used to. It was 7 o'clock. Once that strategy was in place, I felt it would be healthy for me to have some me time in the evening before collapsing. Also, how do you develop new relationships or the one you're already in if you never have adult time in the evening? I put him to bed in the usual loving way and then left him to fall asleep. He wasn't happy about that because I used to sit with him until he fell asleep. I love watching him drift off to sleep, a thing of beauty. Anyway, he was unimpressed, to say the least, and cried for the full 5 minutes I waited until I returned. When I returned, I lifted him up, the first night only, held him, kissed him, and told him how much I love him, and that it was bedtime, and I would be back in 10 minutes. I went into the lounge, covered my ears, turned up the television sound, and waited the 10 minutes. I wasn't going back in anyway, so listening to the crying was just going to be dementing. This was training, not torture, for either of us, and no, I do not believe that this tortures a baby at all, or I would never have done so. The research supports the value of this kind of strategy, and you will need to check it out. You don't have to believe me. When I went back in at 10 minutes, he was still crying. I was really praying this would go easier, I must say, but I was resolute this was best for both of us, hard or not. That wasn't the point. Most things that are the best for us are harder or more difficult than the alternative that feels easier, but the outcome is the point, not the process, right? Should be, I suppose. So on we went. I lifted him up, first night only, hugged him, wiped his tears, kissed him, told him how much I loved him and that it was bedtime, he was safe, and I would be back in 15 minutes. Then I put him down, tucked him in again, and left the room. The room was not darkened, it was dimmed, and the door was left open. Back to the lounge, more meaningless noise. Of course, this is the perfect time for the music in your ears strategy. I just didn't have one to play at the time. 15 minutes later, he was still crying, and I thought, I'm begging you, please settle down. This is horrible. Picked him up, held him tight, loved him, kissed him, cradled his head, and told him how much I love him and that he is safe. It's bedtime, and I'll be back in 20 minutes to check on him. And then I tucked him in and left the room. This time, I turned down the noise and prayed that he would not cry for 20 minutes. But after 8 or so minutes, I thought, sure, back to the noise. At 20 minutes, I returned and he was fast asleep, calmed and cool to the touch, so I knew he had obviously stopped crying and settled to sleep a while earlier. I was so relieved and exuberant, I almost did the dance of my joy right there, but I was too scared to wake him up. He slept that night until 11 o'clock. That was great going. But then I had to repeat the process. I knew it was due, but goodness, I was not into it. It was okay, because I had not yet gone to sleep, but still. And so it went as before, each time I returned to the room, except I didn't lift him up. I bent over him, and held him, and kissed him, told him the same thing each time, and left. Returned to my safe haven in the lounge, and watched the clock with the baby monitor off, and the TV noise turned up slightly. He went to the mid-15-minute mark, and was fast asleep again by the 20-minute return. Sure, I remember thinking, this little fighter? Good for him, but his mommy is up for it. Or so I thought and hoped. That was all fine, but then it was bedtime for me, and when he would wake me up again, I knew we had to do the same thing again. And in the middle of the night, the first prize is do whatever it takes to get him to sleep again so I can sleep again, isn't it? Well, that was my strategy until then, and so I would just take him into my bed, feed him, and put him back in his cot when I could next move sensibly. His cot was right next to my bed, so it wasn't a huge leap. In the middle of the night training session, however, I would have to get out of my bed and go to the lounge for the same process, and stay awake and not collapse on the couch, thinking all the while, you've thought of this for months, you've made your decisions about it, now make the decisions right. And after all, it is only supposed to take a maximum of 5 days, and then you've got a healthy sleeping pattern that will be good for both of you. Right. 3 a.m., which was amazing. That was a few hours in a row. I'm not kidding. I watched the clock turn 3:05 a.m., 3:15 a.m., and 3:30 a.m. before he was fast asleep again, and then I was jubilant and collapsed into my bed joy-filled. Before that point I thought, if he is still awake at 3:30 I may quit this idea, it's just too much. I'd like to think I would have stuck it out anyway, especially because I would then be risking teaching him I had a meltdown point that lasted a half hour, and all he would be likely to do from then on is cry for that half hour each time he was determined about something. That was a pattern I refused to set up, so on we went. He woke up again at 5:30, and I had already pre-decided his get up and demand me time would be 6 o'clock. So I slid off my bed and lay on the floor just next to his cot so he couldn't see me, and drifted off, and then at 6 I fed him and our day began. I was stretched, but not to capacity, and I had a few hours sleep in a row here and there, so that did feel better.